Alright guys, welcome to the channel, and of course everybody should have expected this. I'm going to be going through the recent Project Resistance trailer, analysing all of the things that I thought were pretty curious, giving you some of my thoughts, as well as giving some additional information afterwards, as always. So get your ice cream and gravy ready as always, drag your grandma into the room for some quality family bonding, and let's get into this. So the trailer starts off with this neat little room here, and in the middle of it you can see a lot of computers, camera screens and other things, and on the right there are some boxes that should contain some equipment, and we'll get into that later as well because this scene and this room is very important of course, but for the actual purpose of the trailer I think some of these things are of course demonstrated in a way that it won't be in the game, and we'll just have to wait to see some gameplay before we see how this director role is actually going to play out. So for all intentions and purposes, we'll just be saying that this director is going to be a player and there are going to be 4 survivors. So let's get into the next part and let's press play. Now here of course you can see there is a mission timer for 5 minutes here, and this is going to change throughout the scene, so keep focus on that. And of course there are different cameras. I'm getting some like Dead by Daylight vibes mixed with some Cubed vibes here if anyone's watched that movie, as well as also Saw of course mixed in there as well, and we'll get a little bit more into that as the trailer goes on, because it looks like Saw was used as a huge influence for this game, and it's not uncommon for Capcom to base some of their titles and mechanics and the way they play out based on things from famous horror movies. Carrying on, we get a look at our 4 protagonists here. We have a blonde-haired woman on the left who is holding a handgun. We have our typical first death victim holding a baseball bat, showing that there is going to be a diversity between melee and ranged weaponry. Our Velma want-to-be here, who has nails in her bat, which is quite peculiar, and then we have our typical jock, and we all know that this guy is going to be a giant asshole just based on the way he looks, so get ready to hate this guy already. I mean, I really wouldn't be surprised if Capcom came out and announced that this guy's name is actually Jeff. What is interesting to note, however, is they all do look like college students, so it's quite curious what Umbrella is doing specifically here, and why they've targeted college students, but let's continue for now anyway. On the right here you will see some VATs for growing tyrants, and this is quite interesting. It looks like these will be able to be released later on, and of course I do think there's going to be a system in place. Maybe it'll be a resource or currency system, or maybe it'll be something based on how far the survivors have progressed through the level. We'll just have to wait to find out about more of the specific details on this, but it's pretty interesting, and there are other VATs there for other things, so of course we could see other types of BOWs, and that could kind of be a little bit of a tease because they're empty at the moment. Maybe in the final game you get a choice, for example, of which one you wanted to release. Here is our first look at the director's panel, and you can see him flicking a switch to change the environmental lighting, and of course I do assume with how many switches, dials and other things there are all over that board, that there are a lot of dynamic things that can be changed in the level, like Left 4 Dead's director does, to keep each playthrough fresh, different and unique, as well as apply pressure where it is appropriately needed. And it's going to be pretty interesting for the replay value the most though, especially for a multiplayer cooperative experience. You don't want to just learn how to speedrun through everything once and then be done with the game because it becomes too easy. Here you can see when you progress into certain areas, the doors can be locked on both sides. This basically stops all progression until you complete said area. Weapons and traps can be activated, and it seems like there are other features that you can also add in, such as releasing zombie swarms and other things such as lickers as well. So here in this scene you can see everything going down, everything's being activated, all the zombies are being released, the doors have been sealed, mines have been activated in the room as well. Everything's getting really tense here, and then all of a sudden we get this little thing here, and there's kind of 2 things I want to note about this. First off, of course it looks like lickers are a special type of enemy that are going to be released based on what the survivors are doing and where they're at, but this is one of the highest quality keyboards I've ever seen in a goddamn trailer or video game ever. I mean, it even has the Alt-GR and Windows key, for crying out loud. Did they actually like photo scan a keyboard? I mean, I know this trailer's pre-rendered, but Jesus Christ anyway. Now when the liquor is released, you'll see it's just as traumatic as Resident Evil 2. These little shits are so annoying to hit and are just going to dodge everywhere. Again, it is pre-rendered, but I do believe the gameplay is going to pretty much reflect what you see here when it comes to these types of enemies. And of course, when you defeat the entire area, like a Dead Space Quarantine, we're going to unlock the area and move on. But it looks like something interesting is going to happen before you complete the mission. So an avatar is going to be loaded up, and then it's going to be played by somebody, and that is going to be Mr. X for now, or another tyrant. And they have an antenna as a receiver, so that they can be controlled by a human, and it's basically like the Avatar movie. However, this is going to probably be really awesome, and like I said, it wouldn't really make sense for there just to be one final boss, which is a tyrant. It would make sense for them to choose some of the strongest BOWs and put them into the game for the variety, or there wouldn't really be much replay value. Talking about the timeline, the fact that Mr. X is in this game, as well as the fact that one of our protagonists does actually have a raccoon jacket on, which you can see here clearly in this screenshot, I do believe the events are set around Raccoon City's downfall, maybe just a little bit before, while they were testing out some of the BOWs, and these could have been abducted college students from the time, which also fits in line because their style of choice and fashion does seem reminiscent of the 90s era. So I would say it's probably around 1996 or 1997 that these events are probably happening. Now, if you thought this trailer was the only piece of information that Capcom will be releasing at TGS, you are also dead wrong. There is some more information coming, as some people are going to be able to play it live at the actual TGS event. I did show some screenshots of that in my previous videos, and it's going to be running for the next 4 days, I believe. So there's plenty of opportunities for many fans to get some actual gameplay from it, and then all of that information will of course be relayed back to all of us analysts to make as much judgments, criticisms, as well as compliments where everything is due, and we'll also be able to give you guys a much better story and picture of what to expect. So just remember to stay tuned, because right now a lot of information is going to come out about this. Capcom has learned since the We Do It days of Resident Evil 2's remake. Also guys, if you could help me out with this, I'd very much appreciate it, and so would everybody else in the comments. Now if you remember, I've got some bad eyes, and this is kind of blurry so I can't really make it out, but I do know it's not the Raccoon City Police Department logo, so I'm actually wondering if anybody knows which logo is on what looks like this police officer's shoulder. I can't really make it out, as I said, and it doesn't really come under any kind of logo that I'd recognize in the Resident Evil universe, so if anyone has an answer to this question, that would be absolutely fantastic. As a last little additional point, it doesn't seem like we know who the identity of this individual here is, the director himself. Now many people would of course initially speculate that it's Albert Wesker, and it would make sense considering his involvement in many of the Resident Evil games events, timeline, and lore overall. However, he does seem to have black hair, this person, rather than blonde hair, and his facial features don't quite line up with Wesker specifically, but the biggest thing to cement this in the coffin is the fact that DC Douglas has not been contacted to reprise his role as Wesker in this title. We may be being misled, but I don't really see why Capcom would do that, so this new mysterious protagonist is quite curious. Does that make the game canon? Because we really don't know any specific figure that could have been influential and powerful in Umbrella that just disappeared and was off all records, but at the same time, Dead by Daylight, for example, has an entire lore and canon and universe behind it, so they could fit it in if they did it right. We'll just have to wait to see, but I am quite curious to see if they do add any story elements or not, or if they're just going to have this as a random person to more represent an avatar, kind of like how some game developers do that by putting a helmet on the character that's never removed, aka Halo, and they say it makes you feel more immersed. I'm really looking forward to seeing where this project goes anyway. It's looking pretty interesting. I know it's very different, guys, but I would at least give it a try before you judge. I just hope you're having a beautiful day. As always, though, take it easy and peace.